Hi, I'm Cheryl Leach. In this problem, we're going to consider what it means for a function to be increasing, decreasing, or even constant. Let's take a look at a general picture to begin. We could see in this graph that my curve is increasing, it's rising on that interval. Well, what's happening in that interval? Well, we know that slope of a tangent line is a derivative, so let's go ahead and look at tangent lines. And I'm just drawing in a few, just so you get the idea. Notice that they have all different types of slopes. However, all of them are rising, which means the slopes will be positive. Positive 2, positive 1/2, a variety of different answers, but always positive. So when a graph is increasing, the derivative is always greater than 0 or positive. Now let's move on. There's a section of this graph that is horizontal. In other words, it's constant. And what happens to lines that are horizontal? Well, we know the slopes are 0. So the slope is going to equal 0 when my function is constant. Now let's look at the piece that's decreasing. It's falling. And I'm going to do something similar to what I did with the increasing piece, and that is look at some tangent lines. And again, I'm just going to draw a few in just so you get an idea of what's happening. Okay. Again, all different kinds of slopes, but all of those slopes will be negative numbers. So the derivative is negative when your graph is decreasing. So let's see what happens for a particular problem. I'm going to consider the equation y equals minus x squared. And I want to know what's happening on the interval from negative infinity to 0 or from 0 to infinity. Well, I know this has something to do with the slope of the tangent line. So let's find a derivative. dy dx is minus 2x. Now let's look at our two particular situations. In the first case, I want to know what happens on the interval from negative infinity to 0. So my derivative is going to be a negative 2, which is a negative number, multiplied by x. Now what is x? Well, it's some number between negative or from negative infinity to 0, which means it's what kind of number? A negative number. When you multiply two negative numbers together, what kind of number do you get? A positive. So that tells me that my derivative is positive. And I know that that means that I have an increasing graph. So my graph is increasing on the interval from negative infinity to 0. Okay, well, what happens on this other interval? We'll do a similar thing. But this time, when we look at dy dx, the negative 2 is still a negative number, but the x value that we're plugging in is on the interval from 0 to infinity, which means it's what kind of number? A positive number. And a negative times a positive is a negative number. And we know if the slope of the tangent line is negative, I must have a decreasing function. So I'm decreasing on the interval 0 to infinity. I hope this was helpful. Thanks.